The Opportunity, Part 5. But do you think we're the ones to judge whether or not a play is good? After all, Mr. Leary has written 8 very successful plays, and you told me Miss Hagel said that Mr. Traveller had directed many successful plays. Surely Mr. Belber wouldn't want to invest $150,000 in something that hasn't any merit. I don't understand that, Elise said. I just know the place stinks. But how can you be so sure, dear? Mrs. Wilson asked. I can be sure of what I like and what I don't like, can't I? Elise asked. I'm not going to come out of a grandfather clock making noises like a cuckoo for anybody. I don't like the play. I don't want to be in it. Perhaps if you sleep on it. I don't have to sleep on it. Well, let's go to bed and sleep on it, Mrs. Wilson said. We're both tired. But Mrs. Wilson couldn't sleep. She didn't know what to do. She couldn't force the girl to take the part, but at the same time, to see inexperience refuse a promise of so much money and pleasure gave her a painful wrench. She heard Elise sigh in the dark, and thinking that the girl might be wakeful too, she went into her room. But Elise, as soon as she had got into bed, had fallen into the deep sleep of youth. Mrs. Wilson noticed on the walls photographs of Rex Barney, the late Mrs. Harvey Cushing, Henry Wallace, Valentina, Montgomery Clift, Stanton Griffiths, and Jackie Robinson. In the morning, Mrs. Wilson left for her office without waking Elise, so that she would not be tempted to influence the girl's decision. Elise would have to decide, and Mrs. Wilson wanted, if she could, to keep out of it, but her curiosity and suspense increased as the morning went on, and at 10 o'clock she called the apartment and asked Elise if she had made up her mind. I made up my mind last night, Elise said. Then Mrs. Wilson went back to her shorthand notes and her typewriter, her posture chair and her green steel desk, with the realization that she would spend most of the rest of her life in their company. She could expect a pension when she was a white-haired woman of 65. Perhaps then she could retire modestly to New Jersey. She was thankful that the span of hopeful excitement had been so brief. Elise's appointment was for noon. When she got down to the theater, Mr. Belber, Mr. Traveller, and Mr. Leary were waiting. Gloria Hagel was there. As soon as Elise stepped into the office, Gloria began to talk. Elise didn't have a chance to say anything until she'd finished. Then she spoke. I can't sign the contract, she said. What do you mean, darling? What do you mean you can't sign it? Gloria asked. I've been over this contract with a fine-tooth comb, and you couldn't do any better. You couldn't get a better contract anywhere. I don't want to sign it, the girl said. But why, darling? Why? I read the play last night. I don't want to be in it. Do you know anything about this, Gloria? The producer asked. I don't know what's in her head, Gloria said. I don't know what she's talking about. I just don't want to be in it, Elise said. If you don't want to be in it, you don't have to be in it, the playwright said. He got her meaning long before the others. Now, just a minute, Tom, Mr. Belber said. Take it easy. If she doesn't want to be in my play, she doesn't have to be in my play, Tom Leary shouted. I've never seen such effrontery. I never wanted her for the part anyhow. She's too young. She hasn't had any experience. She's too tall. Shut up, Tom, the producer said. Then he turned to Elise. I don't understand you, Miss Wilson, he said quietly. Is there something about the contract that isn't satisfactory, or is there some line in your part that you want changed? For the first time during the proceedings, the girl seemed to lose her poise. She sat stiffly at the table with her hands folded and her head down, and it cost her an effort to speak. It isn't just one speech, Mr. Belber, she said. It's the whole play. I don't like it. If she doesn't want to be in my play, she doesn't have to be in my play, Leary shouted. Get her out of here. Get somebody else. Get the brat out of here. I've got sensibilities just the same as she has. Telephone Hollywood. Get Dolores Random. Get anybody. Get her out of here. Elise stood. They were all watching. I'm sorry it turned out this way, she said. It was very good of you to offer me the chance. She opened the door and went out. Gloria followed and stopped her in the hall. Is this really what you mean, darling? She asked. Are you really turning down this job because you think it isn't any good? Yes, Elise said. You little punk, Gloria said. Elise started down the stairs. Gloria shouted after her, You brat, you babysitter, you fool. Elise telephoned Mrs. Cogswell from a drugstore and asked if she could come back to work. Mrs. Cogswell was delighted. An hour later, Elise was absent-mindedly pushing a baby carriage down First Avenue, eating a strawberry ice cream cone and smiling at the delivery boys from the grocery store. Either through forgetfulness or disappointment, Elise never mentioned her experience in the theater again.